I mean, for me, from the perspective of managing the empathy and respect, I agree with your earlier statement that the child has to prove themselves first. So you can't. Obviously, you're coming from the position of a child. You're coming from the position of dependency. For you to end the responsibility of being independent, you have to prove it.
Absolutely.
So if the child does the groundwork, proves, okay, I've done my research, I've put in the time and the effort in order to get this done, and comes with the results, as you mentioned, they are successful in what the parents understand success to be, then the child can have the status of being an adult child.
Easier.
The conversation down then flips for me to when that child then becomes the adult child. How do parents manage their own ego to be able to say, okay, now this child has left that position of being dependent on me. How can I manage my ego to be able to now take this child as an independent adult? Because taking someone as an independent adult versus a child comes with new responsibilities. You get what I'm saying? There are certain things you can say to a child that is fair to say to a child.
I think it's life, right? The baton must move hands at some point, right? It's just what life is about. So yes, as you said, daddy works. It's a typical image of an African home. That the father is the figurehead, and his yes is yes, his no is no, is like a mini god at home. There will come a time when you can't be a mini god again. And if you don't, the earlier you accept it, the better your own life is.
Guys, like that's the worst period in a man's life.
You won't get stroke one day because you've already accepted that one day this adult child is going to come and challenge me, right? So if as a parent you choose to hold on to that I am that figure, then you're setting up yourself up for some sort of havoc at the end of the day. And that's just recognizing even where they had come from. Because at some point too, they grew to that stage where they had to have a stronger say in certain things going forward. Because life is dynamic, right? Where they came from, however many years ago, and where the world is today is not the same. So they cannot continue to make those decisions in this technologically advanced global community that we're in. Whereas back in the day, they were better off just being in their localized community, and they were thriving and doing great for themselves. Now, the opportunities that they've given you, they weren't afforded. And if they still feel like with the limited opportunities that they had, and they might be exposed, but because they didn't get that exposure at the same stage and rate that you've gotten it, if they still feel like they are in a better position to make those calls and those decisions, then they need to first of all assess their judgment to even give you those opportunities.
And that even shows signs of a good leader as well. That shows signs of a good leader, because if you don't assess your judgment and make it very rash, like what are you really teaching your kids? You're teaching them kind of insecure in a way, low key. So now I think
from the perspective of a parent, navigating the boundaries where this person was dependent on you yesterday, now they are independent of you, is a tricky boundary to come to grasp with.
Agreed.
So from that perspective, it's not as simple as yes, theoretically we all assume at some point when we get old we'll pass the baton and it's always be fine. But from a practical, natural standpoint, your ego comes into play because the situation is not the same. It's hard to be taking the same. It's hard to accept the challenge from someone that you were their dependent.
But this thing I just gave you is not a theoretical thing. It's even a live practical example.
I know. I'm saying like we all assume that when we get there we'll all be cool with it. Like it makes sense that everybody gets there. But to flip it back on its head, right? If you have kids who have always seen their parents as parents all this while, sometimes when they get to an adult stage, it's hard for them to also switch their mentality to become adults because they've always seen their parents as parents. So I'm saying it's difficult for both parties to switch their mentality because it's not something that comes easy, even though we know it will happen at some point.
Completely agree. But see life, right? At some point you go to university. Even if you go to university in your hometown, right? And you're going to university from home to school, your environment in university will shape your mind. People now begin to go to clubs. people now begin to form societies, etc., etc. Things that you need to make a call on outside of the influence of your parents. When you go through university and finish university, you begin to look for a job, right? So the reason why I was saying it's you said theoretically this is the way to go, but practically what has happened is you've consistently proven yourself to your parents. After your GCSEs or your secondary school qualifications, you went, you did A-level or you did foundation or whichever one, right? You succeeded in that. And at that time, you're growing from a 16-year-old, 15 to an 18-year-old child. That's when you become an adult, getting ready to now enter university. That whole journey of university, which majority of people leave home to go to university. They don't stay at home. At that point, that is when you start to prove yourself to that parent. Because at that point, you start to live on your own. Your parents are watching. How are you surviving? How are you cooking? How are you eating? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you doing your laundry? How are you, all these things that you may have depended on them before. And once you start to prove yourself, your laundry is fine. Your room you're taking care of properly. You're focusing on your studies. You're going to the library. You're attending classes. Your results then come out. This is all part of the successful journey, right? Your results then come out. You've done okay. What okay means for whoever, you and your family. You've done okay. They're like, okay, tick in the box. You keep going. Year 1, year 2, year 3. You're now talking about, I'm putting in applications. You're not going to wait for your parents to tell you that you need to apply for a job after university, because your immediate environment is all looking for jobs. They're all looking for jobs. So you again, you now know you're looking for jobs, right? So you start having those discussions with your parents. Oh, dad, mom, I'm looking to apply for this in this company. Again, your parents are assessing. You're becoming more of an adult child, more of an independent person. And that's the journey that you take them on. And by the time you eventually get a job, you might still be at home. Some people stay at home and work. Some people move away. The moment you move away, you're in your own house, you're paying your own rent, you're feeding your own self, spending that money, however much money you earn. If you earn £500 and your rent is 200 and you're able to manage £100 to eat or whatever, your parents are beginning to realize, for like 6 months, my boy never asked me for money. That's a step forward. So when you call them and want to have a conversation with them, they will begin to recognize that this guy can survive. This guy can think. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
The point I was making earlier, actually, I completely, now with this explanation, it makes so much sense, as in a very linear way, as in, so you get that respect from a moral point of view and a societal point. So
success is not all about how much money you make. Yes. At the end, it's stage by stage.
But I have a slight disagreement, a slight disagreement with that take, because if the child is proving himself to the parent with the already predetermined steps the parents have established, go to school, do well, face your books, be respectful, go to university, get a job, start taking care of yours, get a house, get money. Even if you're proving your success, yes, they might not be as condescending to you as they used to be when they were a child, but the fact that you're doing everything in lockstep with how they told you to go do it, even if you are succeeding at it, still gives them that parent dynamic. I mean, they gave you the blueprint of what to do and you did it. So technically, no matter how much you do it on your own, you're still doing it down to them. I would argue that establishing yourself as the adult children is when you then implement your own approach within that process. An approach that is not part of the predetermined step. That's when it challenges them to begin to see you as an adult child, which is a hard, to my point I was making, that's a hard transition for them to make.
But that's why I chipped in the bit about work. So once you've now gotten your job, most examples, right? This is not, there are so many other examples that may not follow this path. There are people that don't go to school even if their parents wanted them to go to school. They drop out and they can become successful in a different field, whether it's a creative field or whatever, right? But I'll come back to that. Let me just finish this linear sort of example we're taking. When you get into the work industry, at that point, most likely your parents cut off. They don't tell you do this and do that in your workplace. They don't even know what's going on in your workplace. All they know is you have a job with this company and you're earning a decent amount, right? That's just the important thing. And you're surviving and you can. How you then navigate your own internal politics and all of that and grow within that environment you're in is entirely up to you. At that point, you're no longer following their own blueprint. And at that point, the more you do of that, the more you prove to be an adult child. Right? Your father is not going to come and meet you as you are today and tell you, Chips, you need to now apply for the next role. It hardly would any parent ever involve themselves in that.
but it's the same way you say your dad won't come to you when you're in school, or you need to go and study for this assignment tomorrow, like when you're in university. What I'm trying to say is that the reason...
No, but that's why it's a gradual thing to prove that you are becoming an adult. At that point, it's not... See, this thing cannot just go from 0% independence, which is 100% dependency, to a 100% independence, 0% dependency in one day. It's a gradual process. So through that university, through those processes, what I'm saying is at some point you're now on a 20% independence, 80% dependency, you get to 40, 60, 80, and the other one keeps declining until you get to the point where you're now completely independent. Whatever happens to you, you are your own to solve it. You want to go on holiday when you were in university, you will still call your parents and say, Dad, me and my friends want to travel. So even though you were studying on your own and showing 20% independence in decision making to focus on my studies, you were still dependent to a certain extent. Now, can you call your father and tell him you want to travel, we should give you money?
I understand what you're saying. I'm saying the reason they are pulled back is because that's the stage you're in now. You're in the stage where they don't have to give you directions as frequently as they had to do before.
Exactly.
However, the parent dynamic has not changed, because at some point when they want to call you to give you a directive, even though you've proven yourself to be successful, the fact that you've done it through their predetermined step, they still maintain that mentality of, if let's say at some point I'm not calling you every day to determine your job or whatever is going on, but if I was at some point I'm going to call you to give you a directive, they are still expecting you to take that order as a parent-child dynamic, because you've not fully established yourself away from that line of path.
But I talked about that understanding beyond the empathy and the respect. I talked about understanding, right? So that understanding comes in where they now know how your mind works, because you are either the type of person to make decisions for yourself, or you're the type of person to rely on others to make decisions. So if, for example, myself, and this is an active thing, there are certain things that my parents, my dad might not say, he might not initially support, but he knows that I am one that makes decisions for myself. I don't wait for somebody else to make. I'm driven. So if he comes and tells me, don't do this, and if we weren't on the live show, I would have given you live examples where he comes and says, don't do this, what I would do as someone that respects my father is give him logical rationale as to why that thing is important to be done and why I will be doing that thing.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm saying the reason you're able to do that and he's able to take is that you've proven yourself outside of that predetermined line he's created for you. I'm saying that just being successful within that predetermined line wouldn't get you that respect and empathy from your parents. You need to establish yourself as...
No, but it sounds yes, but that's always what I've said, that it wouldn't go from 0 to 100 in one day.
Not in one day, but I'm saying
you need to get to that point.
Yes, of course. You at some point as an individual have to break loss.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you don't get to that point, natural human instincts, they brought you into this world. And in fact, I have heard parents say, you are my son, you are my daughter, I will train you in the way I want. When you grow and leave my house, you can do as you like. But as long as you are under my roof, you will do exactly as I say. And that's because natural human instinct, you must cater for that being that you brought into this world. Unless, and unfortunately, society also paints a picture that it is your responsibility